And we back, and we talking basketball. Since the NBA trade deadline is now passed and some big trades went down, I wanted to talk contenders. More importantly, I wanted to talk about who can and can't be contenders in the NBA. And some fan bases ain't gonna like this take, but I think it's held true by history. Sorry if I sound a little off today, by the way. I'm recovering from a cold right now. This is probably my hottest take about the NBA, but I will stand by it until I die, and I've had it for a while now. It does not matter how good of a supporting cast you put around your best player, how deep of a bench you have, how many good players you have. If your best player is not an arguably top 5 player in the NBA, you cannot win a championship. Not in the league today. But what do I mean by that? Arguably top 5, right? If you can't go into like your friend group or go into a bar where you're hanging out, just having a few drinks, watching a game, and in a casual conversation or whatever, say that, yeah, I think this guy is my top, like he's in my top 5 without getting laughed or yelled at, they cannot be the best player on a championship team. The players that qualify for arguably top 5 change from year to year, month to month, but are usually pretty consistent. Some years is a clear 5 or 6, other years is up to like 9 or 10. But usually there's around 8, just like there are this year. In no particular order, Giannis, LeBron, Luka, Steph, KD, Embiid, Tatum, and Jokic are the 8 and only 8 that are in this argument. Some stans might try to go to bat for Ja, Kawhi, Lillard, or Booker, but let's be for real. To be in this argument, you're gonna have to say, take Ja, for example, because Grizzlies are a good team. You're gonna have to say Ja is better than 4 of the 8 guys that I listed. That's not realistic. Ja is amazing and is probably gonna be in this conversation pretty soon, but right now, are you gonna say he's a better basketball player than Tatum, Embiid, Steph, and KD, or Jokic, or LeBron, or whoever? I don't think so. This is why before 2 weeks ago, no matter how good their record was over the years, the Suns were never a true contender in my mind. Now, on the other hand, even as a Laker fan, I'm not going to sit here and say just because we have LeBron, we have a shot. I've had to watch this team all season. I know we made some trades happen, and hopefully they change a little bit and help us, but come on, bro, let's be honest. It ain't happening. That's because you still need a good team around that top 5 player to win. You can't plug Giannis onto a team full of high schoolers and call them contenders now. So just because you have a top 5 player doesn't mean you're championship contender, but you cannot be a championship contender unless you have a top 5 player. Just wanted to clarify that. But the reason why you need a top 5 player is because in the NBA, more than any other sport, superstar power matters. Because greatness tends to take over in playoffs. Greatness tends to take over in the games that matter the most. Think like LeBron terrorizing Toronto for those few seasons when he was back in Cleveland, which is why, kind of for me, I really haven't had a question about who was going to win the last 3 NBA finals once it got down to the final 2 teams. I mean, we're going to go through all the matchups since 2000 in a sec here, but just like 2020, Lakers and Heat, once it got down to them, I knew like Jimmy Butler was on the hottest streak of his life. But when it came down to it, he was not taking down LeBron and Anthony Davis. Go to the next season, even when the Suns were up 2-0 on the Bucks. I mean, the Suns had a pretty easy path to the finals, but you don't choose who you go up against, right? I'm not blaming them. They got to the finals, whatever. But you're up against Giannis. Even when they were up 2-0 on the Bucks, I still was confident that Giannis was going to be able to come back, and the Bucks ended up almost reverse sweeping, right? 4 straight right after that. I was not concerned. And then even last year, when all the outlets, all the percentages, all of the odds makers had the Celtics by a lot going into that finals, the Celtics didn't have a top 5 player. The Warriors did. Steph Curry was. And I know I did just list my arguably top 5 players, and Tatum was on it. That's the only change I made from last year to this year was adding Tatum. But last year, he was not on it. All right, but let's go back in history and let me prove my point. All right, we'll only go back to the year 2000. I want to keep it pretty modern. Let's go back. Based on player stats, MVP voting, and rankings from people at the time, I've put together a list from every year of guys that I think would have been considered in that argument for top 5. For the 2000-2001 season, it was Shaquille O'Neal, Tim Duncan, Allen Iverson, Kevin Garnett, Kobe Bryant, Tracy McGrady, Chris Webber, and Vince Carter that had a right to this conversation. This was Iverson's MVP year. Duncan, Shaq, Webber, and Garnett all averaged 22-plus point double-doubles. McGrady and Bryant put up 27 and 28.5 points per game respectively at just 21 and 22 years old, and Vince was dunking on dudes like this while putting up 27.5, 6, and 4. The only change in the 01-02 season was the addition of Jason Kidd, who finished second in MVP voting to Tim Duncan. Although I don't know how good I feel about adding a dude who averaged 14.7 points per game, but he did average 9.9 assists per game, and I think in the days of like before advanced analytics and advanced stats, he would have been in this conversation, so I'll add him to the back end of it. And of course, both the first 2 years ended up with a Shaq and Kobe Lakers championship. 02-03, Carter's numbers dropped off far enough to drop him off this list and are replaced by Dirk's 25 points and almost 10 rebounds per game. And the reigning MVP, Tim Duncan, ended up with the championship. Now I know, before I even started, this is the year, this upcoming year, that you've been shouting at your screen, but the Pistons, what about the Pistons? I know. All right, this is one of the 2 outlier years, but I'm going to explain after. Why it can't happen anymore, okay? While I thought about some additions this year in 03-04, especially Jermaine O'Neal with the insane numbers he put up, I decided unless you put up undeniable stats, I'm not putting a one-year wonder on the list like Jermaine. So the only change I made is a subtraction of Chris Webber after his points per game dropped off by 4.5 points. One of the 2 outliers is this Pistons championship over the Lakers. I'm going to explain later why you can't build a team like this anymore, why you can't build a roster like this anymore, but fine. You can have it for now, okay? Because as great of a defender as Ben Wallace was, I can't put a guy on this list where, like, you could reasonably argue to me a guy who averaged less than 10 points per game was a top 5 player. Maybe top 10, like the 10th best player because of his defense, but not top 5. I'm not like letting you put him over Tracy McGrady. 04-05, Jason Kidd makes room for the kid from Akron, who's only in his second season, averaging 27, 7, and 7, along with the addition of MVP Steve Nash. Which, I mean, I'm not going to go into it, but I think he only won MVP because he was a clean white guy, but whatever. I'm not going to get into it. 15 points per game MVP. I'm not going to get into it. It was Shaq, whatever. It was Shaq. And again, Duncan takes another championship for the top 5 guys. 05-06 is the season I think Shaq finally falls off this list with his points falling to 20 points per game. Kobe, Duncan, LeBron, Nowitzki, Nash, Iverson, and Garnett all stay, but T-Mac's injuries start to derail his career and drop him off the list, replaced by another shooting guard and Shaq's new teammate in Miami, Dwayne Wade. And it's a good thing too, because with Diesel falling off the list, Wade is the one that keeps my argument valid and wins the championship, another one for the top 5 guys. There have been 4 guys that have stayed in this argument for 6 years now, but 06-07 will be the year that Allen Iverson finally fell out of it. This is the year he was traded to Denver, where he would go on to team up with one of the 2 guys that would replace him this year with Carmelo Anthony, the other being Gilbert Arenas. And I know I said no one-year wonders, but I even turned down Elton Brand last year too. All right, I know I said no one-year wonders, but come on, man. He averaged 28.5, 5, and 6. That's undeniably in the convo for the year. And again, Duncan brings home another one. Like I said, Arenas was only here for a year, but it would have been more if it wasn't for the knees and the guns.
Yeah, so after I told him I'm gonna shoot him in his face, and he said he's gonna shoot me in my knee, you gotta remember, I've already had 3 knee surgeries, right? So shooting him in my knee, like, that's worse than shooting you in your face, bro. I was just bullshitting with you. Right. You know what I mean? So that's like you gonna take it to the fucking knee? And I was like, you know what? The knee's already fucking bad anyway. But then I'll shoot you in the other one. Now, this is when you know we're just dumb. Right? It's just dumb. It's just dumb.
Wade also drops off the list after a 15-win season. He was also dealing with some injuries too, jumped by Chris Paul and Dwight Howard. And Garnett, in his final season on the list, finally gets his ring in Boston. Along with Garnett in 08-09 go Melo and Nash, with the only addition being the re-addition of Dwayne Wade. And Kobe keeps proving me right with his first without Shaq, and his second without Shaq, and his 5th overall the next season in 2009-2010. And in 2009-2010, Kobe was the last man standing from the 2000 list, with Tim Duncan finally falling out, being replaced by the 21-year-old scoring title winner, Kevin Durant. And the only change the next season was adding the 22-year-old MVP Derrick Rose to the mix. I haven't mentioned him since I added him back in 2002-2003, but Dirk has been one of the longest term stayers over this period and one of the most consistent players, and finally gets his ring to add to the pile. And for the first time from 10-11 to 11-12, there's no change to the list. And LeBron and Wade winning a championship this year definitely doesn't stop my point, nor in the next season in 12-13. In 2012-13, the list shrinks down to just 6, with Rose's knee injury, Dirk's aging, and Howard's Laker year taking them out of it, with Carmelo making a reappearance in New York. 13-14, a lot of changes happened to the list, including Kobe finally falling out after his Achilles injury, along with Wade and Carmelo again. And even with the mini additions, including James Harden, Blake Griffin, and Steph Curry, there was no way I could say Tim Duncan was back in here for his championship. I know he had a good year, but there was just no way. And this is that second outlier year I was talking about. With the Spurs winning the championship, Kawhi, it's too early for Kawhi and way too late for Tim Duncan. But again, I'm going to explain why you realistically can't build a team like this again. 2014-15, LeBron, Paul, Durant, Curry, Griffin, and Harden all stay, getting joined by 21-year-old Anthony Davis and Russell Westbrook, who blossomed after Durant's injury. And the next few years are going to be pretty easy, with the Warriors winning like 3 out of the next 4, but this year, Curry gets his first. 15-16, CP3 and Griffin both fall out, and Kawhi Leonard jumps in, and LBJ adds another to the pile. 16-17, no changes except the jersey that Durant's wearing and a championship in his and Steph's hands. In 17-18, no losses, but Giannis adds his name. No change to the championship result, though. And no changes happen to the list the next year, but one of the more recent additions adds a ring. 1920, I have Westbrook falling out of the argument after his tenure in OKC ended, with Jokic and Doncic taking his spot in the year LeBron added his 4th. The 2020-21 season, I have Embiid replacing AD, because I can't keep him on the list with all those injuries. I know he can be top 5 when he's healthy, but he's rarely healthy, and availability is the most important ability. I can't keep him top 5. And like I said before, there was no fear in my mind Giannis would lose to the Suns. Last year, Kawhi and Harden fell out, with Curry adding another championship, bringing down another one to the pile. And this year, like I said before, just the addition of Tatum. In 20 of the last 22 seasons, the champion has had one of these players. So I know you might be saying this disproves my point because the Pistons and Spurs did it without one. But I don't think it does, because that was 9 years ago, and I said in today's NBA. It was already incredibly hard before, and at worst, I'm still 90% right. But now, I'm telling you, now, as hard as it might be to hear as like a Cavs, Grizzlies, Kings, or Lillard fan, I'm telling you now, it's impossible. I already know if I don't address it, someone's going to comment it, so here, let me address it. So you're saying a team of Shea, Jimmy Butler, Jaylen Brown, Zion Williamson, and Bam Adebayo wouldn't win a championship? Of course that team will win a championship. Okay, Mr. Logical Extreme, debate lord champion of his elementary school, mommy's favorite boy, okay? That team would win a championship. Okay, but that team's not possible to build. And that's what it would take. When you have to pay guys in that 10 to 25 range the same money that guys like Giannis and LeBron are getting, there's not a lot of room for more good players. There's not a lot of money to go around for more good players to come play with you. Especially when even just like good role players like Aaron Gordon, Harrison Barnes, and Malcolm Brogdon are getting $21 million a year. Even if you draft insanely good players in back-to-back-to-back years and build an entire like lineup out of 10 to 25 guys, right? 1, that's not realistic. 2, by the time that team's ready to contend, by the time they develop and are ready to contend, you already got to start paying the guys you drafted first. You can't keep that team together long enough for them to develop into players where you can compete with them. I mean, the last team that I can think of that was like insanely drafted well, all drafted, was the Thunder, and one, like by the time they made the finals, Kevin Durant was already a top 5 player. And 2, exactly what ended up happening, they had to trade away James Harden because they couldn't keep the whole core together. All right? The reason it can't happen in the NBA is because it's not like the NFL, where you're coming in and these guys are like 21, 22, 23 years old by the time they come in the league. And then you have control over them for 4 to 5 years. It's not like MLB, where sure, they might be debuting at 18 if they're the best, but you got them under contract for 6 years. NBA, you got them under contract for like 3-4 years. They're coming in the league at like 19 years old. By the time they're at their peak, they're not hitting their peak until they're like midway through their second contract. They're already getting paid by the time they're hitting their peak. So I don't care what the standings say. The only teams with a chance at a ring this season are the Celtics, Nuggets, Bucks, 76ers, Mavs, Suns, and Warriors. I know LeBron's on the Lakers, but bro, I've had to watch him all season. Unless Ham becomes the greatest coach of all time out of nowhere, they ain't going nowhere. I pretty much lost all hope as a Laker fan. I just hope I can get a finals matchup with a little suspense. Finals matchup where I don't already know who's going to win. And hey, you know, next year's 2024, so maybe it is like an every 10 years thing. So you know what? Hey, maybe next year is your year, Sacramento. Maybe it is. And yeah, that's the end of my argument. That's the end of the video. If you liked the video, hit the like button. Maybe consider subscribing. Come join the community here. I know we're still small here, but I'm trying to build up, trying to build something here. And I got more NBA videos down the pipeline. Gonna do more NFL stuff too. And yeah, you know, looking forward to some big things here. Appreciate any support I get. Give me your thoughts down in the comments section. Love talking to you guys. And yeah, that's gonna be it. Yeah. Please win a game, Lakers. I'm begging you.